Hello and welcome to the March vlog. Still going strong. Not quite the end of the month this time, but I'm managing to sort of keep this little thing rolling. So this will be my 15th vlog in a row, so that's pretty good going. Again, I'm recording this very late at night, so hopefully it'll be a little bit quieter in terms of the traffic noise outside. I've got a little demo running here behind me because I've managed to rebuild my games playing station, all my sort of consoles and everything down there, because we had the room redecorated a few days ago. It's a lovely opportunity to sort of go through the old board games as well and chuck a few of those away. Sell a few and give a few to charity, and then just sort of figure out what we want to do with the rest of them. Bit of a tidy, bit of a clean. Same for the consoles, gave them all a bit of a wipe down, including the telly. And now it's running through some classic demos, which I'm hoping to get to play a bit later. Right, so yeah, not a lot really to report in terms of what's been going on. So game design has been super slow this month. Unfortunately, the games I've been working on, so Ghost Town had a bit of a revamp in that I was asked to try and make it so that when you lay your cards out in front of you to trigger your actions to gain monsters and things like that, people felt that there wasn't enough onus on where they were placed, as in you could just place them anywhere in your town. It didn't really matter, and you were sort of going through the motions. So I created this little system where if you can match up icons on the edges, you get little bonuses. Unfortunately, it didn't go over very well with several of the playtesters. I'm not sure why, because for me personally it felt like it was really good, but I'm going to revisit that and just see what the feelings were. Maybe it's just I need to tweak the system a little bit and try and make that work a bit better. We'll see how that goes. But again, it's the only thing I've worked on in games design wise this whole month. Dragon Ranch hasn't been touched. My live game design group couldn't meet, unfortunately. It's been a bit of a slow month for game design. But with UK Games Expo looming, hopefully I'll get a few more in during April and May, and we can, sort of show it off a bit at the UK Games Expo. Board games played is a lot better story. So we played Unsettled again, so this was a different planet. I think it was like storms or something. We had to either be above the storm or under the storm, depending on where the storm was. That was really good fun again. It was the same sort of system of dice allocation, and then the dice would either tick down or tick up, depending on what action you take. Really good fun, really enjoyed that one. Mystery Agency, this is another one we did. It's called Ghost in the Attic. I think it was this month. It may have been February, but just to sort of recap, it was basically you find a haunted board game and you have to use like your sleuthing skills to try and figure out what these clues are trying to tell you and try and save the day, essentially. Other games we played was the Pride and Prejudice card game. So this was a bit of a weird one. So straight away there was a bit of an icky feeling about it, because the whole intent of the game is that you've got cards of suitable bachelors and bachelorettes, and like you've got to try and play bachelorettes to tempt bachelors to join your card pool, essentially. So when you someone proposes a marriage between two characters, if you accept, they take your card, you take their card, and then you score points based on, I think it's station or something, and there's like 4 numbers in each corner, and they're related to like your wealth or your charm, things like that. It was a bit of an odd one, because there was straight away there was this sort of feeling of grossness, because you're trying to essentially pimp out your characters and get rid of them. But I think for us the big problem we had was there was this quite often you had to try and remember which numbers you were supposed to be comparing in certain situations, because if you accept the marriage, you swap cards and then you figure out who draws extra cards based on, I think it was wealth or something, or charm. You can force a person to marry someone else if you charm them and discard extra cards to make them even more charming, so that basically you force a marriage. And then there's a different situation if you reject someone, you get card draw instead because you've rejected them, and your station is higher than theirs or something. It was a very odd game, and I'm not 100% like convinced by that one, so yeah, I think that might go on the sell pile. Other games played Viva Java, so we finally got to play that one. That one's the coffee roasting game. A lovely weird mix of mechanics where you're doing a little bit of work placement and you're doing a little bit of speculation, collecting beans, and then you put them in a bag, and then you randomly draw the beans back out of the bag to figure out what coffees you're making, and the beans form like poker hands, essentially. So the more beans you get to match, the better your poker hands. So these coffees that you're producing get better, but you're working with the other players at the same time. Very strange. Really enjoyed it, actually. Good fun. What else? There was a 6-shooter card game which I can't remember the name of. The kids liked it a lot. It's quite simple. So basically you lay out 6 cards from your hand. 1 will say shoot, or 2 will say shoot, and things like that, and then other cards will give you little bonuses. So the idea of the game is you want to flip over the bonuses and then shoot your opponent, and you get extra bonuses to your dice, essentially, when you roll them to see if you hit them. It was okay, yeah. Like to play it again just to sort of give it a go. It's quite quick and easy. One that we did play called Galaxy Hunters. So this was one. Basically, it was a bit of a. I've always wanted to design a mech game where it was sort of more worker placement and more focused around like creating the mechs, the garage around the mechs, and using the mechs in a more abstract kind of way rather than the minutiae of combat like you usually see with sort of mech games where you've got like a mech or a lance of mechs and you've got to equip them out and then you do shooting and things like that. So I thought it was my game. I thought it was going to be the perfect thing. So you do a little bit of worker placement where you visit these planets and try and pick up resources. The resources are used to defeat monsters, buy better gear, upgrade your mech, upgrade your pilot, various things like that. It sounded like an absolute slam dunk, because it was perfect theme for me. I love mech games in general. I love the mecha as well. And the models for the mecha were beautiful. They're like this tall, but they're absolutely gorgeous, really well produced. But unfortunately, the game itself was a bit of a slog. So there's effectively, I think we counted it as something like 16 different resources that you've got to collect through killing monsters, going to planets. It definitely felt like it could have done with a good trimming down. Like a lot of the resources could have been removed because they were just basically copies of each other, but hard to get. It was very strange. And you could be irradiated, but you didn't want radiation, but I had a special thing that said, yes, I do want radiation. So I had a lot of the good stuff that you get in worker placement. And it did have a nice build-up towards the end, but I definitely felt, we both felt during the first couple of turns, you're basically just sat there staring at these monsters that you're supposed to be defeating, thinking, I can't really beat anything at the moment. Like, I'll go into that combat and get absolutely mushed. So we spent several turns of building up, which is, always a bit boring in a worker placement game. You want to sort of get started early instead of having several turns of like build, and then like turn 3, 4 actually start doing stuff. Yeah, it definitely felt like a game that could have benefited from starting 2 or 3 turns further on and definitely trimming out a lot of those weird chits and resources. I mean, it got to the point where rather than having lots of chits, they had a board that you mark how many each resource you have, and there was like, I think there was like 10 on this board alone, and then there was like a few others that you could collect chits for. It's really odd. So unfortunately, not one that we're likely to get to the table again. Which is a bit of a shame. And then we finished off the month with Qwirkle. So we had a lovely game of Qwirkle. I absolutely love Qwirkle because it's a lovely colour and pattern matching game where you're trying to match these tiles up to either the pattern, the shape or the colour, and depending on how you do it, and then you're trying to Qwirkle where you finish off a row of either all 6 of the same symbol in different colours or all 6 symbols in the same colour, and if you do that you get a bonus 6 point, and it was just Qwirkle towards the end of the game. Really good fun, really love that one. Yeah, so that's all the board gaming for this month. Onto video games. So I've been stuck on one video game the whole month. Just before starting recording, I got to the very last boss. It's the Mario and Luigi Dream Team Bros is the game. It's on the 3DS, and it's basically like an RPG where you play as Mario and Luigi, and you've got like lots of attacks that kind of revolve around, like throwing shells and things like that. It was good fun to begin with. I think after 40 hours of gameplay, I'm kind of done with it. I'm on the final boss. He's supposed to be hard, I understand, but he's got this really, essentially you can get into a loop, or he can get into a loop, where he's got these 2 arms that he defends his head with, and you're trying to hit the head bit, but what he'll do is if you don't cripple the arms first, he'll just cover the head and you do 0 damage to the head. So you've got to take out the arms first. Fine, okay, cool. But during the course of taking out these arms, he's also got several attacks that he'll do on you. One of which is he disappears to the background, summons a bunch of minions, heals himself at the same time, and then you've got to deal with all these minions. And there's so many of them that it takes you 2 or 3 turns to take all them out. Meanwhile, every turn he's healing up as well. And then eventually, once you've defeated all those minions, he'll pop into play and then do another 3 attacks on you before you even get a chance to hit him. So I got to a point this evening where I just said, no, I've been playing for 20 minutes. I've, basically watched you re-heal all the damage I've just done to you. So I'm just going to turn this off, do something else, which includes recording this vlog. Which is a bit frustrating because it'd be nice to finish that game because it's been going on for a while. I've had it going for ages. Yeah, so I'm not going to bother with that one anymore. I'm going to try and finish that last little bit and then go. Other games we've played is a surprise for me, Triforce Heroes. So it's a Legend of Zelda game where you've got a red Link, a blue Link, and a green Link. And it turns out that we've got just enough consoles. Like I've got an old 2DS, a 2DS, a new 2DS, and a 3DS, an older one. But you can use one cartridge to sort of download play to the other two consoles. So all three of us, me and the kids, were playing as different links in this this game, basically using one cartridge. Absolutely fantastic. So we're all laughing and giggling because there's this mechanic where it's called toteming, where you pick up a person and they can still use their sword and things, but they walk you around and they can chuck you onto higher ledges and stuff like that. And then you've got all the classic things like the boomerang, where you can swing out and collect things. You've got the sword, you've got the bow and arrow, which obviously just shoots things, the hook shot, so you can grab things and pull yourself towards them. Really good fun. Really enjoying that one. So I'm just going to try and get the kids back on it. Unfortunately, there's a lot of screaming and shouting at some point, because you can quite often accidentally pick someone up and lob them into some water. And it's sort of 50-50 whether that's the water that will kill you or it's the water you can swim around in, which is a bit of a weird inconsistency. But yeah, no, really enjoying that one. Again, another older game. And then most of March was spent at the beginning of the month sort of cleaning up all those lovely Game Boy cartridges. So I've got a nice little stack and selection here of Game Boy cartridges that I've cleaned up, and then I've used this thing called the GB Operator by Epilogue to back up the ROMs, because a lot of these games, what will happen is the battery will die in them, in the older cartridges especially, and then you won't be able to save on them anymore, or you'll get situations where the pins just become so damaged, or there's some rust or something happens inside of them that will stop them working effectively. I don't want to lose my games. I think it's a bit of a shame that a lot of these sort of games are being lost. So I've backed up essentially all of those, which has been a fantastic thing to do. Not only because the Epilogue makes it super easy, but it also means I can now play it on more modern hardware that's less likely to break. Speaking of older hardware, though, one of the things we did do was me and the kids have restored a couple of old Game Boy Advances. So I got rid of my Game Boy Advance years and years ago and swapped it out for probably a 2DS a Nintendo DS or something like that. And I'm kind of regretting it now, because it was such a lovely form factor, you know, like the two buttons here and the little trigger pad here, and it's not too small in the hand. But again, I don't know after 20 years whether it would have still been a usable console. So picked up a couple of these second-hand ones, and we've essentially replaced the shell completely, and also replaced the screen with a lovely IPS panel that is absolutely gorgeous. I don't know if you can quite see that. Is it going to focus? Look at that lovely sound. Yep. So you've got this lovely IPS panel, which is what do they call pixel perfect. There's also, you know, usage of my newly found soldering skills, where I was able to add a control thing in there, so they can also change the colour of the screen. So if you wanted to make it look like an old DMG Game Boy, you can. Yeah, which was great fun. You can also put in like the pixel grids. You can change the brightness, so you can save your battery a bit more if you're in high light conditions already. It was a really fun project to do with the kids. Obviously, my younger one, he had more help with the screws and things, but my older daughter, she was able to sort of put it all together again. Oh, and the buttons glow in the dark. I'm not sure I can get it to work in here, but essentially these buttons also glow in the dark, so they were made up. I've bought a third one so I can do a mod kit for myself to keep hold of it, but I'll be putting those on display, hopefully, up in that little cabinet there, because I've got a now free cabinet. So, yeah, that was really good fun. What else is on the list? Oh, that covers my projects. Oh, one thing to mention with those, though, is the IPS screen. It came with a little motherboard at the back, which is what allows it to do all this colour changing and pixel gridding and brightness changing. We got them from a company called Retro 6, and they're called clean screens. Unfortunately, we got through 4 different boards before we eventually were asked to send in the whole kit, and they had a little look and tried to fix them up. So it turns out that they've had a really bad batch of these clean screen motherboards that all needed to be reprogrammed. So very good on them to sort of just say, look, just send it in, we'll fix it from here. And they did, and it actually works really, really well now. Initially we had things where like the lights wouldn't switch on behind the panel, so it was just blank the whole time, but you could still hear the music, so we knew it was doing something. And then in the second round that they sent through, when they replaced that first lot that wasn't working, one of them just sort of was really like distorted and pixely, and you couldn't really see anything. And the second one had these bizarre like colour changing lines, so it wasn't unplayable. It was still a very playable experience. But what it meant was that you were constantly having like greys replaced by blues and stuff like that. It was a bit weird. But anyway, they very kindly took them. We just sent them in, and they replaced those boards and fixed them up and made sure when they sent them back that they worked perfectly. So that's really good of them. Yeah, and that's all the video games stuff and projects that we've been doing this month. So on to the final segment, books. Just the one. So I finished that book about, what was it? I think it was about mechas and stuff. Did some proofreading for my wife again, and then mostly been trying to get through the latest book, or one of the latest books by Stephen King called Holly. So this revolves around a detective so it's like a private investigator called Holly, who's got multiple neuroses and things like that. Who was introduced in a couple of earlier books with, I think her partner was like Bill or something. So Bill was an ex-cop. He took on Holly as almost like an apprentice or a helper, and things happen to him. She takes over the business, and it turns out she's really, really good as a private investigator. The book itself is following multiple threads about, she's obviously been put on a case to try and find a missing person. This sort of expands into all sorts of things. The book itself is following multiple threads, which in itself is not a problem. The issue I'm finding is that none of those stories seem particularly compelling. Like, I'm really struggling to want to keep going, especially as, without trying to spoil it too much, you kind of find out where the problem is from the very beginning of the book. So you spend the rest of the book just waiting for them to figure it out and kind of like get together, which is a very Stephen E. King kind of thing to do. He's very, very often he will sort of, what do you call it, like pre-show you what's the outcome or the bad guy or something like that. But in most of his other books, there's a bit more tension, there's a bit more going on. In this one, I don't know, I feel like it's just going to come to a conclusion, but it's going to be the obvious conclusion. We'll see. I'm going to finish it. I'm more than halfway through, but yeah, not very compelling, that one. And that's about it for this month. As I said, we've redecorated in here, in the games room, so I've had an opportunity to rebuild everything, give it a little jig around, and get rid of a load of stuff. We picked up quite a few video games from various gaming shops as well. Ones that either I didn't get to the first time round, or they're ones that I remember playing ages and ages ago and just, missing having no copies. I mean, it was a different time, essentially, when I didn't have any disposable income whatsoever. So, if I wanted to get new games, I had to trade in my old ones. And at the time, it felt fine. Like, I've completed this game. I don't want to play it again. And then realising 20 years later, I remember the game. I don't remember like the minutiae, I remember the vague feeling of enjoying the gameplay and enjoying the story, but I don't remember the story, or I don't remember the gameplay to the letter. So it's been really nice sort of exploring these old games again. Super Metroid. So yeah, it's been really nice to kind of pick those back up and play those again. But yeah, we visited a game shop in somewhere called Froome, actually, which was a bit of a different place. Very grown up, a lot of boutique-y shops for weird stuff. I even managed to pick up a couple of ghosts to go in the ghost collection, which I might show later. Yeah, that's about it really. Most plans for the next couple of months are trying to get ready for UK Games Expo, playtesting a few things, getting a few things done, and putting a hiatus on the game buying thing, because I think of my targets, yeah, I'm about halfway through my video games budget if I want to hit gold this year. So I better stop. I better buy fewer games, be more selective. Yeah. And we'll look at those. We'll look at those at the sort of July, I guess, to do like a 6-month recap of those. So that's about it for this month. So I'm just going to sign off now. Have a good Easter, which I think is what's coming up next, and then I will see you in April. Cheers, bye.